December 5th, 1927. The Sioux Locks, on the border between Michigan and Ontario. The steamer Kamloops passes through, rising to meet the level of Lake Superior. 22 people are aboard carrying general freight bound for Fort William. None of them will be seen alive again. The Kamloops is a Canadian freighter 250 feet long, built 5 years earlier in England, and shipped across the Atlantic to work the Great Lakes. She is smaller than most vessels on this route, built narrow enough to fit through Canadian canal locks. By December, she is on her last run of the season following another steamer, the Quaydock, into open water. Her captain knows this lake in winter, knows that every late run carries risk, and pushes forward anyway, because a missed delivery this late in the season could mean no delivery at all until spring. The weather holds calm through the locks. But out on Superior, a storm is already forming, one that will become known as one of the worst of that decade on the lake. By December 5th, it hits full force. Winds tear across the water at gale strength. Waves build past 20 feet. Temperatures fall well below freezing, and spray turns to ice the moment it lands on deck, adding weight to every surface it touches. Crews on other vessels caught in the same storm later describe ice forming faster than it could be chipped away, thickening on railings, hatches, and rigging until ships rode dangerously low in the water under the added weight alone. The Quaydock, ahead of the Kamloops, loses sight of her in the blinding snow. The two ships had been traveling in loose contact, watching for each other's lights through the storm, a common practice on this route in bad weather, each vessel serving as a kind of witness for the other. Then, sometime on the evening of December 6th, south of Royale, the Kamloops simply disappears from view. Nobody sees what happens next. Nobody hears a distress call. She is simply gone, swallowed into the same whiteout that had already made visibility nearly impossible for hours. When the Kamloops fails to arrive at Fort William, search efforts begin. From December 12th to the 22nd, boats comb the areas she should have passed through. They find nothing. No wreckage, no lifeboats, no bodies. The search covers open water along her expected route, but nobody yet suspects to look specifically near Royale itself, because there is no reason yet to believe she came anywhere near the island. Winter closes in over the search before any trace surfaces, and by the end of December, the Kamloops is presumed lost, with all 22 aboard, her fate completely unknown. It is not until the following spring that anything from the ship reaches land at all. In May 1928, fishermen working near 12 o'clock point on Royale find wreckage washing ashore. Months after, the ice that had sealed the island through winter finally breaks up. Then they find bodies. More are recovered in the following weeks as the spring thaw continues to release what the lake had been holding through the cold months. Among the crew is a young assistant stewardess named Alice Bettridge. 7 months after the sinking, in December 1928, a trapper working along the Agawa River, more than 150 miles from Royale, finds a bottle wedged in the current. Inside is a note, water damaged but legible, written in a hand later identified as Alice Bettridge's. It reads simply, "I am the last one left alive, freezing and starving to death on Isle Royale in Lake Superior. I just want Mom and Dad to know my fate. The note tells searchers something the wreckage alone never could. Alice survived the initial sinking. She made it to the island, and then, alone, with no way to signal for help, she died there anyway, waiting for a rescue that had already given up months before her body would be found. The distance the bottle traveled, more than 150 miles across open water, before a trapper happened to find it in a river mouth, is itself its own quiet improbability. One more thing that had to happen by chance for her final words to ever reach anyone at all. Investigators pieced together a rough sequence. The Kamloops likely struck a reef in the storm near what will later be named Kamloops Point, taking on damage that sent her down quickly in deep water just offshore. Some crew apparently made it into the frigid lake, and at least one, Alice, reached the rocky shore of Isle Royale alive. What she found there was nothing. No shelter built for survivors, no supplies, no way off the island in December. With the shipping season over and the lake already freezing at its edges, Isle Royale in winter is essentially uninhabited, cut off from the mainland by ice, too thin to walk, and water too cold and rough to cross. A place built by geography itself to strand anyone left there. The exact wreck site remains unknown for 5 decades. The Kamloops becomes one of Lake Superior's so-called ghost ships, a vessel that vanished completely, its location a mystery, even as its crew's fate slowly became clear through recovered bodies and Alice's note. Divers search the waters around Isle Royale periodically over the following years, hampered by the depth, the cold, and simply not knowing where along the island's rugged coastline to focus their search. Then, on August 21st, 1977, a team of sport divers conducting a systematic search finally locates the wreck. She lies northwest of Isle Royale, near Kamloops Point, in water 260 feet deep, along the base of an underwater cliff. What they find stuns even experienced divers. Lake Superior's cold, low-oxygen water has done something unusual to the Kamloops. Bacteria that would normally break down organic material in warmer water cannot survive at this depth and temperature. The ship is remarkably preserved, sitting largely intact after 50 years underwater. And in the engine room, divers find something they do not expect. The naturally preserved remains of a crew member, later given the name Old Whitey by those who dive the wreck, a body that time and decay never fully claimed. The engine telegraph, the device used to signal commands between the bridge and the engine room, is found set to finished with engines, a final order given in the last moments before the ship went down, frozen in place exactly as it was left. The Kamloops remains at that depth today, a protected and difficult technical dive, one of the most preserved shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, precisely because of the same cold, punishing water that killed everyone aboard her. Divers who visit describe drifting past cargo still strapped in place, past a hull that looks, in patches, as though the ship sank only recently rather than a century ago. Alice Bettridge's note still exists today, preserved by the family that eventually received it, a single physical object connecting a shipwreck at the bottom of Lake Superior, to the exact words a dying woman wrote for parents she would never see again. Her body was recovered from Isle Royale in 1928. The wreck that killed her was not found for another 49 years after that. For 5 decades, anyone standing on that stretch of Isle Royale shoreline was standing within miles of both Alice's grave and the ship she died trying to escape, without either one knowing where to find the other.